People like you don't belong here. You stink up my store just by breathing.
A black man, faded, wrinkled shirt, pants so old they rode up past his ankles, shoes torn at the toes, shabby, standing in a luxury department store. The cruel saleswoman grabbed a mop bucket, lifted it high, and poured filthy water straight down over his head. It ran down his face, soaked his shirt, dripped onto marble.
There. Now you match the floor.
He didn't flinch, wiped his eyes, slowly looked up. His hand found a button on his soaked shirt, pressed it. A tiny red light blinked once. She had no idea. That shabby black man was the undercover CEO testing every employee in that building. If you've ever been judged walking through a door, drop your story in the comments and subscribe. What happens next will shatter everything. First, we rewind 72 hours. 72 hours earlier, Owen Moore sat at the head of a long conference table on the 14th floor of Pinnacle Retail Group headquarters in Atlanta. Floor-to-ceiling windows behind him, a tailored charcoal suit on his body, cufflinks engraved with his grandmother's initials on his wrists, a $40,000 Patek Philippe on his left hand. Owen Moore was the founder and majority owner of Pinnacle Retail Group, 38 luxury department stores across the country, $2.1 billion in annual revenue. A self-made black man who started with a single thrift store and turned it into an empire. On the screen in front of the room was a bar chart, customer discrimination complaints, up 340% in 18 months. The Chicago flagship on Michigan Avenue was leading every single location. His general counsel slid a folder across the table. 3 lawsuits filed this quarter alone, all from the Michigan Avenue store, all dismissed internally by Greg Ashford's office before they reached us. Owen opened the folder. Inside was a complaint from a black woman. Her words were typed in plain font on a plain page, but they hit like a hammer. The floor manager followed me for 20 minutes, then told me the items I was holding were above my budget. Owen closed the folder. The room waited. He spoke 4 sentences. Book me a flight to Chicago. Don't tell Greg. Don't tell the store. Don't tell PR. The next evening, Owen stood in a hotel room in downtown Chicago. He removed the Patek Philippe and set it on the bathroom counter, then the wedding ring, then the cufflinks. He laid each piece down carefully, like a soldier laying down his weapons before walking into enemy territory. His head of security, Ray Sutton, opened a duffel bag on the bed. Everything inside had been bought at Goodwill for under $20. A wrinkled flannel shirt, 1 size too big, faded pants that rode up past the ankles, shoes with the toes torn open, a worn corduroy jacket with a missing button, dollar store reading glasses. Owen put it all on. He looked at himself in the mirror. He didn't look dirty. He didn't look dangerous. He just looked shabby, like a man who works double shifts and buys his clothes from donation bins. The kind of man a luxury store might decide doesn't belong. Ray fitted a tiny camera into a button on the flannel shirt. He tested the feed on a laptop. Crisp audio, wide-angle video, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. "You sure about this?" Ray asked. "You could send someone else." Owen shook his head. "The complaints mention a black man in his 50s getting turned away. If the system's broken, I need to feel it myself." He tucked his grandmother's leather journal into a plastic grocery bag. It was the only thing on his body worth more than $10. When Owen walked through the hotel lobby in his disguise, a bellhop looked right through him. Didn't hold the door, didn't make eye contact. Owen was already invisible, and that was the first sting of many. In the surveillance van parked 2 blocks from the Michigan Avenue store, Ray pulled up the employee file for Brenda Holloway, floor manager. Clean record, 5 Employee of the Quarter awards, 0 complaints on file. Ray frowned. "That's strange. Corporate received complaints from this store." but her file is spotless. Someone scrubbed it. The next morning, Owen Moore walked into his own store. He was wearing torn shoes and a wrinkled shirt. He was carrying a plastic grocery bag. And not a single soul recognized the man who signed their paychecks. The body cam timestamp read 10:14 a.m. when Owen pushed through the revolving glass doors of the Michigan Avenue flagship. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Designer displays lined every wall. The air smelled like $300 candles. And then there was Owen. Wrinkled flannel, pants riding up past his ankles, shoes torn at the toes, a plastic grocery bag hanging from his wrist, dollar store reading glasses perched on his nose. A woman at the handbag display glanced at him, then looked away. A man in a suit did a small double-take, but kept walking. The reactions were subtle, not hostile, just dismissive. He was beneath their notice. Owen walked to the men's fragrance counter. He picked up a cologne tester, smelled it, set it down. A young sales associate approached him. Her name tag read Tanya Mills. She noticed his clothes. She noticed the torn shoes, but she didn't miss a beat. "Good morning. That's our new autumn line. Would you like to try the sandalwood?" Owen smiled. "I'd like that. Thank you." Tanya sprayed a sample strip and handed it to him. They chatted easily. She treated him like any customer who walked through the door. No hesitation, no second glance at his shoes. She was the only one. Then the heels started clicking. Brenda Holloway appeared from behind a display. Her eyes locked onto Owen and scanned him from head to toe. The torn shoes, the too short pants, the wrinkled flannel, the plastic grocery bag, the cheap glasses. Her lips pulled tight. She didn't greet him. She spoke past him, directly to Tanya. "Tanya, I need you on the second floor, now." Tanya hesitated. "I'm helping a customer." "I'll handle it." Tanya left reluctantly. Owen noted her name tag in his memory. Brenda turned to Owen. No smile. "Sir, are you looking for something specific, or are you just browsing?" She said the word browsing like it tasted bad. Her eyes flicked to his plastic bag like it might contain something stolen. "Just looking at the cologne," Owen said calmly. "Thinking of buying something for myself." Brenda glanced at the price tag. $280. Then she looked at his torn shoes. "That particular line is part of our luxury collection. Perhaps I can point you toward something more in your range?" "I'd like to stay with this one, thank you." Brenda's jaw tightened. She turned away and lifted her radio. Her voice carried just far enough for Owen to hear every word. "Keep an eye on the gentleman at Fragrance. Flannel shirt, plastic bag, no purchase history. He doesn't belong here." She didn't whisper it. She didn't lower her voice. She said it like Owen wasn't standing right there, like he was furniture, like he didn't matter enough to be careful around. The security guard, a young man, visibly uncomfortable, positioned himself 10 feet away. He pretended to check a display. He wasn't fooling anyone. He kept glancing at Owen, then back at Brenda, then at the floor. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Owen didn't leave. He picked up another bottle, read the label, took his time. The body cam captured what happened next. Brenda leaned toward another associate and whispered, "Don't waste your commission. He's not buying anything. Look at him." Owen had seen enough to confirm the pattern, but he wasn't ready to leave, because what happened next would cross a line even he hadn't anticipated. The body cam timestamp read 10:38 a.m. Owen moved to the men's clothing section. He stopped in front of a cashmere blazer, $1,200. He held it up and pressed it against his chest to check the fit. The contrast was sharp. A man in a wrinkled flannel and too short pants holding a jacket worth more than everything he was wearing combined. Brenda was on him in seconds. This time she was louder. Other customers could hear. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to put that down. That's a display piece." It was not a display piece. It had a size tag and a price tag. Owen knew retail. He had built this company from nothing. It has a price tag, Owen said calmly. I'd like to try it on. Brenda stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a hiss. Look, I'm trying to be polite. You're making other customers uncomfortable. You clearly can't afford anything on this floor. If you're not here to make a purchase, I need you to leave. A white couple nearby glanced over. The woman clutched her purse tighter. Nobody said a word. Owen didn't leave. He walked to a bench near the fitting rooms and sat down. He opened his plastic grocery bag. He pulled out a leather journal and began writing notes. This is what sent Brenda over the edge. A shabby man, sitting on her bench, writing in a journal like he belonged there, like he had every right. She disappeared for 2 minutes. When she came back, she was rolling a mop bucket, the kind the cleaning crew uses at the end of the day. Gray water sloshed inside. It smelled like bleach and old floor grime. She rolled it right up to Owen's torn shoes. Since you seem to enjoy sitting around like you work here, she said, maybe you can make yourself useful. And she dumped it, tipped the bucket forward and let the water pour. Filthy, gray mop water fluttered across the marble. It soaked Owen's shoes. It splashed up the cuffs of his too short pants. It pooled around the bench legs in a spreading gray stain. The store went dead silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that happens when every single person in a room holds their breath at the same time. Tanya Mills had returned to the first floor. She witnessed the whole thing from behind a clothing rack. Her hand flew to her mouth. A teenage customer across the aisle had her phone out. She had been recording since the cashmere blazer confrontation. Owen looked down at his soaked shoes sitting in a puddle of dirty water. Then he looked up at Brenda Holloway. He didn't shout. He didn't curse. His voice was low and steady, devastatingly calm. I'd like to speak with your supervisor. Brenda smirked. I am the supervisor. Then I'd like your full name and employee number. Brenda laughed, a real laugh, a dismissive laugh, the kind of laugh you give someone you believe has no power at all. My name? For what, a complaint? Go ahead, see how far that gets you. She turned and walked away. The security guard stared at the floor, ashamed, silent. Tanya rushed over with paper towels. She knelt on the wet marble. It soaked through her uniform pants. She didn't care. She started wiping Owen's shoes. I'm so sorry, sir. I can't believe I'm so sorry. I'll get you the complaint forms. I'll be your witness. Owen looked at her. What's your name? Tanya. Tanya Mills. He opened the leather journal and wrote her name, underlined it twice. Tanya glanced at the journal. Expensive leather, quality paper. For a split second, something didn't add up. A man in torn shoes carrying a journal like that. But the moment passed. Outside in the surveillance van, Ray Sutton had watched every second through the body cam feed. His hands were clenched so tight his knuckles were white. He picked up his phone. Get legal on the line. Now. Meanwhile, the teenager uploaded her 52-second clip. The caption read, Department store manager dumps MOP water on black customer because he looks shabby. Within 1 hour, it had 200,000 views. The clip was already going viral, but nobody online knew the real story. Not yet, because the shabby man sitting in a puddle of mop water on a marble floor had not yet played his hand. At 11:20 a.m., Brenda Holloway was in the back office. She was laughing, telling a coworker about what she'd done. You should have seen his face, standing there dripping like a wet dog. Bet he won't come back. Then her desk phone rang. The caller ID read, Pinnacle HQ, Executive Office. Brenda straightened up. She answered in her professional voice. The voice on the other end belonged to Pinnacle's General Counsel. Ms. Holloway, This is the office of the CEO. We're conducting an internal review of your store. Mr. Moore will be arriving shortly to speak with you directly." Brenda blinked. "Mr. Moore? I've never met Mr. Moore. When is he arriving?" A pause. Then, "Miss Holloway. Mr. Moore has been in your store since 10:14 this morning." The color drained from Brenda's face. She walked back onto the sales floor on shaking legs. Owen was still there, sitting on the bench, journal open, still wearing the soaked flannel, still wearing the torn shoes with mop water pooling around them. But something had changed. Ray Sutton had entered the store. Tailored suit, earpiece, Pinnacle security badge on his chest. 2 additional security personnel flanked him. Ray walked to Owen. He didn't look at the wet clothes. He didn't look at the torn shoes. He spoke the way you speak to a commanding officer. "Sir, your things." He handed Owen a garment bag. "And what happened next is the moment you will rewind and watch again and again." Owen stood. He unbuttoned the soaked flannel shirt and shrugged it off, let it fall to the marble floor. Water dripped from it in a small puddle. He put on a crisp white dress shirt, then a charcoal Tom Ford jacket. He fastened the cufflinks. His grandmother's initials caught the chandelier light. He stepped out of the torn shoes, stepped into polished Oxford leather. He put on the Patek Philippe. $40,000 now glinting on the wrist that had been bare and dripping with mop water 5 minutes ago. He turned to face Brenda. She had frozen mid-step 15 feet away. Her mouth was open. No sound came out. The shabby man she dumped mop water on, the man she told didn't belong, the man she laughed at when he asked for her name. He was standing in a $6,000 suit with a security detail, and every employee on the floor had stopped breathing. Tanya, watching from the fragrance counter, whispered to a coworker, "Oh my God, that's him. That's the CEO. The CEO of what? Of this, of everything, of every store. He owns the floor she's standing on." Brenda's legs buckled slightly. She caught herself on her display table. Her hands were shaking. She started walking toward Owen. "Mr. Moore, I didn't know. You looked like—" She couldn't finish. Every version of that sentence was a confession. Owen's voice was quiet, no malice, no volume, just gravity. "I looked like what, Miss Holloway? Like someone who doesn't deserve to shop in this store? Like someone you could dump dirty water on and laugh about?" Silence. That's exactly the problem. You decided who I was the moment I walked through that door. And you were wrong. But even if I were the man you thought I was, a man who wears flannel and shops at Goodwill, what you did would still be unforgivable. He turned to Ray. "Secure all surveillance footage, internal and external, every angle." The wrinkled flannel and torn shoes still sat on the marble floor. Nobody moved them. The teenager's clip had already hit 1 million views, but the internet only had half the story, and the half they didn't have was about to blow the roof off. 24 hours later, the teenager's clip had reached 4.8 million views. The hashtag #MopWaterManager was trending in every major city in America. News channels ran the footage on a loop. The chyron across every screen read the same words: "Luxury store manager dumps mop water on shabby black customer." Daytime talk shows played it. Social media tore it apart. Comment sections flooded with stories from people who had been followed in stores, asked to show receipts for no reason, or told items were out of stock when they were sitting right there on the shelf. The clip was powerful because of the contrast: crystal chandeliers and marble floors, designer displays and $1,200 blazers. And in the middle of all that luxury, a man in a wrinkled flannel getting dirty water dumped on his head, while a woman in heels told him he matched the floor. The comments poured in by the thousands. This happened to me at a mall in Houston. My mother was followed around a jewelry store for 30 minutes. I was told a bag was sold out while it was sitting right there on the display. I cried watching this because it brought everything back. The clip didn't just make people angry, it made them remember. Everyone who had been judged by what they were wearing, everyone who had been made to feel small in a place where they had every right to stand. This was their story too. But the public didn't know Owen was the CEO. Not yet. They saw an ordinary man, a working-class black man humiliated for the crime of looking shabby. The sympathy was volcanic. Behind the scenes, a different kind of scramble was happening. Greg Ashford, regional director, called an emergency meeting at his office. Greg didn't know about the undercover operation. He didn't know Owen had been in the store. All he knew was that one of his floor managers had gone viral for the worst possible reason. Greg's playbook was simple. Isolate, minimize, sacrifice just enough to survive. He drafted a corporate statement. We do not condone the behavior shown in the video. The employee in question has been placed on administrative leave pending review. Administrative leave. With pay. A slap on the wrist designed to survive one news cycle and be forgotten by the next. Greg called Brenda directly. Keep your mouth shut. Don't talk to the press. Don't post anything online. This will blow over in a week. Brenda's voice was shaking. Greg, you don't understand. The man in the video, he's... Greg cut her off. I don't care who he is. We handle this my way. He didn't let her finish the sentence. He would regret that more than anything else he'd ever done in his career. Outside the Michigan Avenue store, a different scene was unfolding. Local community leaders held a press conference on the sidewalk. Pastor Elijah Greer stood at the microphone. Behind him hung a banner printed with screenshots of dismissed customer complaints, complete with dates and store locations. This is not one woman with a mop, Greer said. This is a pattern. This is a system. And we have the receipts. A former Pinnacle employee stepped forward, a black woman who had worked at the store for 2 years. Her voice was steady and clear. I reported Brenda Holloway 3 times. For following black customers, for refusing to serve them, for telling a retired veteran he looked like he crawled off the street. Every single report was lost by regional management. Every single one. The crowd murmured. Phones were recording everywhere. The press conference live stream hit 85,000 concurrent viewers. Through all of this, Owen said nothing publicly. He was back at Pinnacle headquarters in Atlanta, watching the coverage on 3 screens in his office. His PR team was begging for a statement, a press release, anything. The silence was killing them. Owen refused. Not yet. I want to see who tries to bury this first. He wasn't just testing the store anymore. He was testing the entire system from the top, watching which executives scrambled, which ones tried to cover up, which ones did the right thing. He already had his answer about Brenda Holloway. Now he wanted his answer about Greg Ashford. Greg Ashford thought he could make this disappear in a week. He was drafting carefully worded emails. He was calling board members he'd played golf with for years. He was pulling every string he had. He didn't know that the man he was trying to protect Brenda from was the same man who could fire him with a single phone call. And that phone call was coming sooner than anyone thought. Owen ordered a company-wide internal audit. Every discrimination complaint filed across all 38 Pinnacle stores in the last 5 years. Every single one. The results came back in 72 hours. They were staggering. 152 complaints total across the chain. 89 of them from the Chicago flagship alone. 62 had been marked as resolved by Greg Ashford's office without any action taken. No follow-up, no disciplinary measures, no sensitivity training, no apology letters. Not a single phone call back to the customer who filed. Nothing. Just a check mark in a spreadsheet and a file shoved into a drawer. But the worst number was this: 23 employees who filed discrimination complaints were terminated within 90 days. Every single one was fired for so-called performance reasons. Attendance issues that didn't exist, sales targets that had been quietly raised after the complaint was filed. One woman was let go for failure to maintain professional appearance, 3 weeks after she reported Brenda for telling a black couple to try the outlet mall. Another employee, a young black man who had worked in menswear for 4 years, was terminated for insubordination after he refused to follow Brenda's instruction to shadow a black family through the accessories department. His termination letter was signed by Greg Ashford personally. Owen read the audit at his desk. Spreadsheets, bar charts, a timeline of buried complaints stretching back 5 years. His hand shook. He built this company. These numbers were his failure. Even if he didn't know, it happened under his name. 62 complaints, he said quietly to no one. 62 people told us something was wrong, and I let them down. Then the IT forensics team delivered something worse. They had recovered deleted emails from Greg Ashford's account, emails he thought were gone forever. They weren't. The first email was from 14 months ago. A store associate had written to Greg directly. Brenda Holloway told a customer she doesn't serve people who look like they crawled off the street. The customer was a retired veteran. Greg's reply, in full: "Noted. I'll handle it internally." There was no follow-up, no action, nothing. The second email was from 9 months ago. Human Resources had flagged Brenda for a pattern of customer complaints. HR recommended mandatory sensitivity training. Greg's response to the HR department was 4 words long. Brenda's floor outperforms every other in the region by 22%. Drop it. The third email was from just 3 months before Owen's undercover visit. Another associate reported Brenda for telling a young black couple to try the outlet mall down the street. Greg forwarded the complaint directly to Brenda. His message was one line: FYI, keep it cleaner. Keep it cleaner, not stop it, not fix it, just hide it better. Each email was timestamped. Each one had a sender and a recipient. Each one proved the same thing. Greg Ashford knew exactly what Brenda Holloway was doing. He didn't care, because her floor made money. Around this same time, investigative journalist Nina Velasquez at the Chicago Tribune was working on something of her own. She had been tracking retail discrimination complaints across Chicago for months. The viral mop water clip had accelerated her timeline. Nina obtained leaked documents from inside Pinnacle. Internal complaint logs compared side by side with what was reported to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The numbers didn't match. Over 40 complaints had never been forwarded. They existed in Pinnacle's internal system, but vanished before reaching any outside authority. Nina published her article with a headline that landed like a bomb. Inside Pinnacle Retail, how a regional director buried years of discrimination complaints. The article included direct quotes from former employees, timeline graphics, a comparison chart of complaints filed versus complaints actually reported. It was meticulous. It was devastating. It got 1.2 million readers in the first 48 hours. And then came the money trail. The deeper investigation revealed that Greg Ashford didn't just bury complaints out of laziness or loyalty. He had a financial motive. His annual bonus was tied to something called Stor Harmony Metrics. Low complaint numbers meant higher payouts. The fewer problems on paper, the bigger the check. Over the last 3 years, Greg had pocketed an additional $340,000 in bonuses, partly by keeping his stores profitable, and partly by making sure the complaints that would lower his score never saw the light of day. $340,000. That was the price tag for 62 people's dignity. The emails, the money trail, the buried complaints. It was all documented. Every timestamp, every dollar, every ignored cry for help. But Greg Ashford wasn't going down quietly, and his next move would put Owen's entire operation at risk. Greg Ashford hired a crisis PR firm within 48 hours of the clip going viral. Their strategy was simple. Don't defend Brenda. Destroy Owen. A planted story appeared on a prominent business blog. The headline read, "Pinnacle CEO's undercover stunt. Leadership or entrapment?" The narrative was crafted with surgical precision. Owen Moore, billionaire CEO, deliberately dressed in shabby clothes to bait his own employee into a viral moment. He manufactured outrage for publicity. He wanted the clip. He wanted the headlines. The company wasn't the villain. The CEO was. Some business commentators picked it up. Social media split down the middle. A segment of the public turned skeptical. The comment sections filled with doubt. So the CEO dressed like a bum to trap his own employee? That's entrapment. And rich guy pretending to be poor for clout. This isn't activism, it's reality TV. The pressure reached the boardroom. 3 board members, allies of Greg or old guard investors who valued stability over justice, demanded an emergency meeting. They wanted Owen to step back. One of them spoke first. His voice was cold. "You went undercover without board approval. You recorded an employee without her knowledge. Technically legal in a one-party consent state, yes, but optically, this is a disaster. You are the liability." A second board member leaned forward. "The stock dropped 3% this week. Advertisers are pulling back. Our brand partners are asking questions. And instead of managing the crisis, you're sitting on evidence like some kind of vigilante. This is not how a public company operates." Owen didn't blink. The liability is 152 discrimination complaints buried under a bonus structure that rewarded silence. The liability is a regional director who got paid $340,000 to look the other way. The liability is not me. The room divided. Some board members backed Owen. Others wanted the whole story to die. A motion was floated. Temporary leave of absence for the CEO until the investigation concluded. The vote was close. It failed by 1 vote. One single vote kept Owen in his chair. That night, Owen sat alone in his hotel room in Chicago. The wrinkled flannel hung over the bathroom door. The torn shoes, still damp from the mop water, sat by the trash can. The worn corduroy jacket was draped over a chair, the costume of the man he had pretended to be. Sitting 5 feet from the suits of the man he actually was. He opened his grandmother's leather journal. On the first page, in her handwriting, "Build something that treats people the way nobody treated us." He closed it, sat on the edge of the bed, looked at those damp, torn shoes. "I built this company from nothing." His voice cracked. Not a dramatic collapse, just a fracture. A single break in the armor he'd been wearing since the mop water hit his face. And somehow, inside my own walls, people were being treated like they were nothing. "Grandma, I'm sorry." His phone rang. "Ray, you okay?" A long pause. "She dumped a bucket of dirty water on a man, Ray. Poured it over his head. Because he was wearing a flannel shirt in the wrong store. In my store. Under my name." Another pause. Longer. "No, I'm not okay. But I will be." What's the next move? While Owen was breaking down in a hotel room, Brenda Holloway was building an offense. She had hired a lawyer. She was planning a wrongful termination lawsuit, a preemptive strike. Her lawyer's angle was sharp. Hidden camera. No warning. The CEO deliberately misrepresented himself as a customer. We can argue hostile work environment, created not by the employee, but by the CEO himself. A legal threat letter arrived at Pinnacle headquarters the next morning. The board was divided. The public was skeptical, and now the woman who dumped mop water on the CEO's head was threatening to sue him. Owen had the truth, but truth alone doesn't win. He needed something that couldn't be spun, couldn't be lawyered away, couldn't be denied. And it was about to walk through his door. Tanya Mills picked up the phone and called Pinnacle's legal department directly. She didn't go through Greg Ashford's office. She didn't go through her store manager. She called corporate headquarters and asked for the legal team handling the Michigan Avenue investigation. She brought a notebook, not a company-issued log, her own personal notebook. She had been keeping it since her first week on the job. Every incident she witnessed, every date, every time, every customer description, every word Brenda said. "I started writing it down after the first week," Tanya told the legal team. "I knew nobody would believe me without proof, so I wrote everything down." Her notebook corroborated 14 of the buried complaints, 14 separate incidents, all documented in her own handwriting, all matching the dates and descriptions in the internal audit. But Tanya had something else. She had screenshots. Brenda ran a group chat with senior sales associates. In that chat, Brenda gave instructions. She mocked customers by appearance. She told staff which shoppers to steer toward the exit. She taught her team exactly who deserved service and who didn't. One message, displayed with the timestamp and Brenda's name at the top, read, "If they look like they can't afford the door handle, don't waste a greeting." That single screenshot would be seen by millions. Nina Velasquez's article had triggered something even bigger. Former Pinnacle employees started reaching out, not just from Chicago, from stores across the country. People who had seen the same patterns, filed the same complaints, and met the same silence. 5 former associates agreed to go on camera, faces visible, real names. They had all moved on to other jobs and were willing to be identified. Their testimonies were specific, time-stamped, and consistent. The first said, "I was told to follow black customers within 30 seconds of entry. White customers got 5 minutes before anyone approached them." The second said, "I watched Brenda refuse to unlock a display case for a black woman. That woman turned out to be a surgeon. She wrote a complaint. It disappeared." The third said, "I reported what was happening. 3 months later, I was fired for poor attendance. I had 1 sick day in 2 years. 1. They didn't even try to make the lie convincing." A fourth said, "Brenda told me to my face that certain customers lower the tone of the store. She said it like she was talking about the weather, like it was just a fact." The fifth said, "I loved working at Pinnacle. I believed in the brand. But I couldn't stay in a place where I watched people get treated like that and nobody above me cared." Nina compiled the testimonies into a 12-minute mini documentary. She published it online. 3.8 million views in 72 hours. The comment section under the documentary was filled with one word, over and over: believe. While the public evidence was mounting, Owen's legal team prepared their most powerful piece, the full, unedited body cam footage. 52 minutes, time-stamped, no cuts. The teenager's clip was 52 seconds. It showed the worst moment, but it missed everything that came before. The full footage told a different story, a complete story. It showed Tanya Mills greeting Owen warmly and professionally, proof that good employees existed in the same store. It showed Brenda's radio call to security. "Flannel shirt, plastic bag, he doesn't belong here." Proof that the profiling was premeditated. It showed Brenda whispering to associates, "Don't waste your commission." Proof that the discrimination was a culture, not a moment. It showed the full mop water incident, Owen's calm request for her name, Brenda's dismissive laugh. "A complaint? Go ahead. See how far that gets you." But the most powerful thing about the footage was how boring most of it was. A man in shabby clothes walking through a store, picking up items, reading labels, smiling at people, speaking softly. doing absolutely nothing wrong. Interrupted again and again by escalating hostility, for no reason other than what he was wearing. The footage destroyed the entrapment narrative completely. Owen never raised his voice, never provoked, never argued. He simply existed in a space while looking like a working-class man. His appearance was the only provocation, and that was exactly the point. Owen's legal team confirmed that Illinois was a one-party consent state. The recording was fully admissible in any legal proceeding. Brenda's lawsuit had just lost its foundation. Owen called a private meeting with the 3 board members who had voted against him. He presented everything, the full body cam footage, the internal audit showing 152 complaints, Greg Ashford's deleted emails, Greg's bonus structure proving financial motive, Tanya's corroborating notebook, 5 former employees speaking on camera. He spoke quietly. You can side with Greg and hope this disappears, or you can side with 152 people who trusted this company and were betrayed. That's your vote. The board members watched the footage in silence. When it ended, one of them, a woman who had been on the board for 12 years, removed her glasses, pressed her fingers to the bridge of her nose, and said 5 words. Call the full board. Tonight. The evidence was airtight. The allies were in place. Now it was time to take this public. Not through social media leaks, not through anonymous tips, in a room full of cameras where the whole world would be watching. Something had shifted. The story was no longer about one woman and a mop bucket. It was about a system. The hashtag #MopWaterManager had evolved. It was now joined by a new one. Not in our store. And this one was bigger. This one was a movement. People across the country started sharing their own videos, being followed in stores, being asked to show receipts while white customers walked past unchecked, being told items were out of stock when they were visible on the shelf, being guided toward the clearance rack without asking. A TikTok compilation of retail profiling stories hit 22 million views in a single week. National civil rights organizations issued formal statements. Legal aid groups offered pro bono representation to former Pinnacle employees. The story had escaped the internet. It was in living rooms, in churches, in barbershops and break rooms. People were talking about it who never watched viral clips. It had become something bigger than content. It had become a cause. Pastor Elijah Greer organized a candlelight vigil outside the Michigan Avenue store. Hundreds attended. Former employees, community members, customers who had walked through those doors and been made to feel like they didn't belong. Greer stood at the front with a microphone, the candles reflected in the glass storefront behind him. Mr. Moore, he said, if you're listening, we don't want apologies. We want accountability. We want the people who buried those complaints to face the same scrutiny as the woman who held the mop. A woman in the crowd stepped forward. She was in her 60s. She held a candle with both hands. I shopped at this store for 15 years, she said. Last spring, a saleswoman asked me if I was lost. I was carrying a Pinnacle loyalty card. I never went back. Another voice, a man in a work jacket. They followed my son around the shoe department for 20 minutes. He was 13. He came home and asked me why they thought he was going to steal something. I didn't have an answer. Story after story, voice after voice. The candlelight flickered against the Michigan Avenue storefront. The vigil was live-streamed. 140,000 people watched at the same time. There was a moment of silence for every customer who had been made to feel they didn't belong. For 30 seconds, the only sound was the wind and the flicker of candles. Meanwhile, every major news outlet was requesting interviews with Owen. He declined them all. Every single one. His silence was louder than any statement could have been. His team released a one-line statement. Mr. Moore will address this matter publicly at a press conference scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. That single sentence ignited the internet. Social media countdowns appeared. Prediction threads exploded. Analysts debated on cable news whether Owen would fire Greg, resign himself, or restructure the entire company. The press conference hadn't even happened yet, and it was already the most anticipated corporate event of the year. If you've ever been treated differently in a store because of how you looked, drop your story below. This community sees you. Now stay with me, because what happens at this press conference is going to change everything. Friday morning, 9:58 a.m. A ballroom full of cameras, reporters, and live feeds reaching millions. Owen Moore walked to the podium carrying a single folder. Inside that folder was the evidence that would end careers, expose a system, and prove that the man they all dismissed as Shabby was the one who had been holding every single card from the very beginning. The ballroom at Pinnacle headquarters was packed. Cameras from every major network, microphones stacked 3 deep at the podium. The live stream counter ticked past 2.1 million concurrent viewers before Owen even opened his mouth. He walked to the podium in a charcoal Tom Ford suit, grandmother's cufflinks, polished Oxfords, the Patek Philippe. But the first thing the camera zoomed in on was not Owen. It was the table beside the podium. On it, laid out like evidence in a courtroom, were the clothes. The wrinkled flannel shirt, still creased where it had been balled up on a marble floor. The scuffed sneakers, stained with dried mop water. The worn corduroy jacket with the missing button. The dollar store reading glasses. The shabby costume, laid out for the entire world to see. Owen let the room look at it. Let the cameras zoom in. Let every viewer at home connect the shabby clothes on the table to the man in the $6,000 suit at the podium. Then he spoke. My grandmother raised me in Baton Rouge. She cleaned houses for families who never learned her name. She told me something I never forgot. She said, build something where everybody gets to walk through the front door. I built Pinnacle to honor that promise. He looked at the scuffed sneakers on the table. His voice dropped. Last Tuesday, I put on those shoes and walked into my own store. And I discovered that the front door my grandmother dreamed about, the one I promised to keep open, had been slammed shut by people I trusted under my name. And I failed her. Silence in the room. A reporter in the front row wiped her eyes. Then the evidence began. Owen narrated as footage and documents appeared on the screens behind him, layer by layer, each one heavier than the last. Layer 1. The full, unedited body cam footage. 52 minutes condensed into key moments with timestamps. The audience saw every escalation. The profiling, the radio call, the whispered insults, the mop water pouring over his head, his calm voice asking for her name, her laughing in response. Layer 2, the internal audit. 152 complaints, 62 buried, 23 employees terminated after reporting. Bar charts and timelines filled the screen. Layer 3, Greg Ashford's deleted emails, projected word by word, dates, names, responses. When the email appeared where Greg wrote, "Keep it cleaner," telling Brenda not to stop discriminating but to hide it better, audible gasps came from the reporters. Layer 4, the bonus structure. $340,000 in payouts tied directly to suppressed complaint numbers. Greg had been paid to keep quiet. Layer 5, Tanya's notebook, and the staff group chat screenshots, Brenda's own words to her own team. If they look like they can't afford the door handle, don't waste a greeting. Each layer landed like a hammer. By layer 3, cameras were flashing non-stop. Owen picked up the folder. He read the consequences. Brenda Holloway, terminated immediately. All customer complaints forwarded to the State Civil Rights Commission. Greg Ashford, terminated immediately. Required to return $340,000 in bonuses tied to complaint suppression. all emails forwarded to federal investigators reviewing potential civil rights violations. 3 board members who moved to oust Owen asked to resign. 2 complied immediately. The 3rd was voted out by the remaining board that evening. Company-wide reforms. An independent civil rights ombudsman installed at every location. Anti-discrimination training redesigned with community input. A $2 million fund for affected customers and wrongfully terminated employees. And one more name. Tanya Mills, promoted to assistant floor manager of the Michigan Avenue store, effective immediately. When Tanya's name was announced, the room broke into applause. The live stream chat exploded. A reporter shouted from the back, "Has Ms. Holloway responded?" Owen paused. Ms. Holloway was offered the opportunity to participate in this review. She declined. "I understand she intends to pursue legal action. That is her right. We will respond in court with the same evidence you have seen today." In her apartment across town, Brenda Holloway watched the live stream on her laptop. The legal threat letter sat on the table beside her. It looked like a losing hand now. Her lawyer called. She didn't answer. The press conference ended. The cameras shut off. But the story wasn't over. Because the ripple effects of that single morning in Chicago were about to reach places Owen Moore never expected. 3 months later, federal civil rights investigators opened a formal review of Pinnacle's Chicago operations. Greg Ashford faced a separate state investigation for misuse of corporate funds. Brenda Holloway's wrongful termination lawsuit was quietly withdrawn. Her own attorney reviewed the full body cam footage and the staff group chat messages and told her she had no case. She never filed again. 18 of the 23 wrongfully terminated employees received settlement offers and formal apologies from Pinnacle. Some returned to the company, some didn't. All of them were heard. The Not in Our Store campaign grew beyond Pinnacle. It led to proposed state legislation requiring retail chains to report discrimination complaints to an independent oversight body. The bill was introduced with bipartisan support. Owen Moore visited the Michigan Avenue store one more time. This time, he wore his real clothes: the charcoal suit, the cufflinks, the watch. He walked the sales floor. Employees greeted him, not out of fear, out of familiarity. The culture was shifting, slowly, but it was shifting. He stopped at the fragrance counter. Tanya Mills was there. Her new badge gleamed under the lights, assistant floor manager. She smiled. "Welcome back, Mr. Moore. Still interested in the sandalwood?" Owen laughed. It was the first real laugh anyone had heard from him since this whole thing began. "I think I've earned it." He bought the cologne, $280, paid with a card that had his name on it. The same cologne Brenda Holloway told him he couldn't afford. The same counter where Tanya had treated him with basic human kindness when nobody else would. He walked out through the front door, the same front door his grandmother told him everyone deserves to walk through. Back at headquarters 1 week later, Owen was at his desk when Ray walked in carrying a new folder. Owen opened it. Inside was a report from Pinnacle's Dallas flagship, a different store, a different set of complaints, a different pattern. He looked at the folder, looked at Ray. "Get me the flannel." Somewhere in a closet at Pinnacle headquarters, hanging on a single hook, was a wrinkled flannel shirt. Below it sat a pair of shoes with the toes torn open. Waiting. If this story made you feel something, hit that subscribe button, because part 2 is coming. And trust me, you don't want to miss what Owen Moore finds in Dallas. Drop a comment. What would you have done if someone poured mop water over your head? Would you have stayed calm like Owen? Or would you have lost it right there on the sales floor? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, never judge anyone by what they're wearing. You never know who's watching.